Hello viewers, this video will explain the Surpassing the Leader arc from the manga USOGUI, and all the complex mind games we have seen in the game. I am going to explain both Baku and Hal's perspectives and motives from the very beginning of the arc. Now this arc is not easy to understand, it's arguably the most complex game in the entire series. As many people are not aware of every single detail in this arc, and what both Hal and Baku precisely did in order to achieve their goals, and in this video, I am also going to clear doubts based on Kuruma Souichi's feats, as this is the most controversial topic in the community. Many people still don't know how to scale Hal and Baku. Now let me clear it. I have made this analysis by myself after reading Surpassing the Leader for multiple times, and for some of the parts, I understood them from some existing documents. Now before anything else, if you are not aware of the game rules, or you have forgotten the rules, then you can pause the video and read the rules first, because it's very important to understand everything later on. So let's talk about Baku's perspectives and plans in short. As we all know, Baku wanted to defeat Hal using the leap second, which were to happen on January 1st, precisely at 9 AM. Baku's motive was to somehow use the leap second. Now as soon as the game starts, Baku's plan was to firstly figure out the pace of the game, which we all know. Then his next plan was to enter the leap second route. After he enters the leap second route, he must accumulate Hal's near-death drug to at least be 5 minutes. As you know, the limit of the container is 5 minutes, and 5 minutes is also a guaranteed death, which means, if you die for a total of 5 minutes, you will have near no chances of survival, or the chances would be very rare, considering the potential of the person's body, and Baku wants to make sure Hal dies after the leap second, because there would be absolutely no point of this strategy if Hal does not even die after the leap second. So to completely defeat Hal, Baku's main motive is for Hal to reach at least 5 minutes, if not exceed it, to make sure Hal dies. Now this was what Baku wanted throughout the arc. But before continuing forward, just in case you have no idea what a leap second route is, that is going to be an important thing to consider in this video, then I will explain it to you. But if you already know what a leap second route is, then you can skip this part. Now the leap second route is basically the time route when Baku would be able to play as the dropper at 8:59 AM. If Baku can play D at 8:59 AM, then he is in the leap second route, but if he can't, then he's not in the leap second route. Now let's see how to calculate the leap second route. In order to figure out if Baku is in the leap second route, we have to calculate from Baku's current turn to play D and see if he can play D at 8:59 AM as well or not. In order to calculate this, you must know that every half of a round takes up 2 minutes, which means if we assume 8:17 AM is when Baku plays as D in the actual game, then if we calculate the leap second route from 8:17 AM, we have to skip 4 minutes further to see if 8:59 AM is included in the route or not. 4 minutes is because we must only consider Baku's turns to play D, and as you know, Baku's turn to play D occurs every 4 minutes. So if we calculate the leap second route from 8:17 AM, you can see Baku is not in the leap second route, but if we calculate the leap second route from 8:35 AM, then you can see Baku is in the leap second route. I hope with this explanation, you can understand what the leap second route is and how Baku calculated it during the game. Now let's look at Souichi's perspectives. Please keep this in mind, that Souichi knew about the leap second since the very beginning. I will explain how. This is chapter 473, and you can see Baku gives a stopwatch to Souichi, and as Souichi starts the stopwatch, and if you look at the stopwatch closely, you can notice 59 milliseconds on the stopwatch, which is turning into the 60th millisecond. And right in this 1 millisecond, Souichi observed Baku's hands to be slightly trembling, and asks him if he's nervous. Now Baku's hands to tremble at such a point of time is really suspicious, as 59 to 60 millisecond would refer to the leap in time, which shows the leap that occurs in a minute. Souichi figures this out and tries to get more information out of Baku, and as we can see, Souichi gives the stopwatch back to Baku, in the top right corner of the panel. If you turn it upside down, you can see Hal stopped the stopwatch at exactly 9 seconds, which also indicates that there is a leap seconds at 9 AM. Souichi sets this as a trap to confirm his doubts and see how Baku reacts, and as we know, Baku broke the stopwatch itself, because it might expose him. With these premises alone, Souichi figures out Baku's scheme completely, but then due to his perfect mode, he chooses to erase the memory of leap second. But keep in mind, even if he removed the memory of leap second, his subconsciousness would still not forget it. I will explain why he did that later on. But what exactly is Souichi planning? Let's discuss Souichi's plan after he figured out leap second. Now dodging the leap second is very easy, but Souichi knows that he might end up losing his memory, and hence forgetting about the leap second itself, and due to this, there is absolutely nothing Souichi can do to dodge Baku's trap, and hence the only way for Souichi to win against Baku is to fall for his trap, but survive even after the leap second happened. This might sound illogical at first, but everything would be crystal clear later on. Hal knows that Baku did not plan beyond the leap second, and so he can effectively use this flaw against Baku, but in order to survive it, Souichi has to keep his total time of death lower, and make sure that due to his memory loss that is going to happen anytime irregularly as explained by Yaku here, it becomes almost impossible for Hal to win against Baku if he uses the leap second. The only way for Souichi to counter leap second is to actually fall for it, which would probably happen automatically due to Hal's memory loss. But in order to win against Baku despite losing his memory and falling for leap second, which is bound to happen, Hal cunningly decides to survive after he dies from leap second, and that is only possible by not exceeding or even reaching 5 minutes of TTD. Now keep this in mind, this is just a possibility that Hal is considering and preventing in advance, because there is also a possibility of Hal actually not losing his memory till leap second, but Hal is preparing all of this just to prevent the worst case scenario. And even if Souichi doesn't lose his memory, his preparation still would not go to waste either way. Now, this plan can be countered if Baku notices Hal's TTD, and Baku would immediately realize that it's not logical to use leap second anymore, and make sure, for Baku using the leap second is not that important but to defeat Hal, and using leap second even though Soichi's TTD is not even enough to kill him with the leap second is not practical, and Baku really won't hesitate to abandon the plan. So Hal has to avoid this possibility as well, which means Hal's plan would be riskier, because, in order to avoid Baku noticing Hal's plan and abandon leap second, Hal has to create a really short deviation that Baku wouldn't notice at all. Hal has to make Baku believe that he is not aware of leap second, so that Baku keeps relying on leap second, so that Hal can successfully create a short deviation and survive. Now as we have cleared the motives of both Hal and Baku, we can start to perceive the actual game without wasting any more time. Now as Baku, Hal and referee Yaku enter the obelisk, Yaku sees Kaji and Gakuto, and asks them to leave. Now this is Baku's plan in order to prevent Yaku from using the clock, as Yaku believes that Kaji might have done something to the clock, and Baku supports the claim and manipulates Yaku indirectly to choose the speaking clock which is superior to anything, and will be the deciding factor of the game. Now even this was planned by Baku, as Baku knows that the phone line uses the leap second version of the clock, so that Hal doesn't dodge the trap, as the dong sound would ring twice when he leap second happens, and Hal would turn 1 second before Baku drops the handkerchief. Now let's directly get to the game. Baku and Hal choose to play rock paper scissors to decide who plays the dropper, aka as the D roll. As the D roll is more advantageous, the one to win the rock paper scissors will play as D. Souichi wins this and plays D in the first half of the first round, and Baku plays the checker aka as C. Now the first round begins at 8:12 AM. Both Baku and Hal try to understand each other's personalities and how they would think in this scenario. Hal believes that Baku, as a gambler, who does not hesitate to risk his life, would turn around in the middle phase to experience his near death, and hence Hal decides to not drop the handkerchief, while Baku as well sees through this thinking of Hal, but actually Baku is planning to die in this round in order to understand the pace of the game. As you know, a failed check might have different time intervals than a successful check. So Baku chooses to die, and it's the best thing for Baku to do, considering it's the safest near death, and Baku chose this also because it would proceed the game by 5 minutes, as 8:59 AM is a lot far from the current round, and we see Baku's brilliant check, where he checks right before Hal was even able to drop, which means he perfectly predicted when Hal would drop it and made sure he fails his check. But what Hal did is also very impressive. Instead of dropping the handkerchief immediately, he chose to keep it down slowly, as a strategy to counter Baku's god-like senses and aura. Hal slowly proceeds to keep the handkerchief on the ground instead of dropping it. He did that as Baku might check at any time Hal drops. This was really impressive for Hal to do, while also waiting for Baku to check before he drops. Now as Baku failed his check, he would be injected with the 1-minute penalty drug. Meanwhile Hal tries to mentally burden Baku to affect Baku's willpower with tough words. This is a really brilliant move for Hal to do in order to make Baku die. It's an effective move. Hal fabricates about him setting up the near-death drug again, trying to inflict fear within Baku, but Baku comes out alive at 8:14 AM at the 40th second, and the round is supposed to start at 8:17 AM. Baku realizes that the interval in a failed check is about 5 minutes, consisting of 3 minutes of the entire injecting and reviving process and 2 minutes of interval for the next round. Now notice what Baku did before taking the death drug. He took off his coat for his next strategy in the next half. As the next half starts at 8:17 AM, it's Baku's turn to play as D. Now since it's Baku's turn to play D, let's calculate the leap second route from this moment, and as you can see Baku is not in the leap second route. Now Baku sets up a crazy mind game. he steps in front of Hal with his necktie in his left hand slightly revealed to reflect it as the handkerchief, as I mentioned before. He took off his coat as to give information to Hal to doubt if Baku is holding a handkerchief or a necktie. With this move, Baku's aim was targeting the accumulation. As you know, Baku has already started to accumulate Hal's drug in order to make leap second near death more effective, and not just that, but he even came up with a mind game to make sure Hal takes time in order to figure out the informations that are being revealed to him in a tricky manner. However, Souichi slowly figures out the information given to him. He realizes that Baku hasn't shown his front to create a tricky mind game for Hal to take time choosing if Baku is holding a handkerchief, but Hal figures out that it's a necktie, and as he figures it out, Baku gives off a new information. That is, Baku was indeed holding the necktie, and make Hal wait for his next move, and that's exactly what Hal does. He wanted one more information in order to turn around instantly. However, this seen through by Baku, he does nothing, but Hal sees through this and turns around exactly at the 26th second. Now what exactly was happening in this round was, Hal was about to check at exactly 2 seconds, and that's exactly when Baku dropped the handkerchief and stepped in front of Hal. Now this shows how brilliant both Baku and Hal are. They have godlike perception. Baku, who prevented Hal from turning out by stepping in front of him exactly when Hal was about to turn. Meanwhile, Souichi, who was about to turn around and achieve an instant check. This shows how insane both Baku and Hal are in speculating. Hal sees through Baku's aim after creating a theory about Baku's god-like senses, where Baku steps in front of Hal exactly when Hal was going to turn around. Hal remembers that Baku turned around in the first round exactly when he was about to drop, and if Baku's sense is really godlike, then Baku would have dropped the handkerchief, because Baku stepped in front of Hal, as if to prevent Hal from achieving a perfect check. Through this theory, Hal sees through the fact that Baku has dropped the handkerchief. This is a brilliant abductive reasoning feat, to create a theory on the spot and ruin Baku's motives to make Hal accumulate at least 40 seconds. With this, Hal had accumulated 24 seconds. Meanwhile, Baku has 60 seconds of TTD, aka total time of death. But there is something in this round to understand. Why was Hal going to turn around at 2 seconds? That's a really strange thing to do, considering Hal wanted to win perfectly. Hal made this bet as he knows that Baku must not let Hal die at this point of time, as there is no reason to collapse the potential leap second route, and his aim was to accumulate Hal's container first. As Hal knows about leap second subconsciously, Hal would check early as he knows Baku is going to drop the handkerchief as early as possible to avoid irregular scenarios. But Baku's godlike sense even avoided Hal's perfect check and accumulated 24 seconds of near-death drug, which is kind of an effective accumulation. On to the second round's first half, which is going to start at 8:19 AM. Leader plays as D and Baku plays as C. Let's assume since Baku is not in the leap second route, and in order to enter the leap second route Baku has to fail his check intentionally in order to interrupt with the pace of the game and enter the leap second route. Let's assume if Baku fails his check in this round, the game will be preceded by 5 minutes. Which means Baku's turn to play D would be at 8:24 AM, which means Baku is not in the leap second route. Instead, Baku might have ruined the potential leap second route opening in the next few rounds. This shows that Baku must definitely avoid his death in this round. He must achieve a successful check. However, Hal, who knows this, again tries to inflict fear within Baku, so that Baku dies. This is also a regular strategy for Hal, as Hal knows he's in the worst case scenario due to his memory loss. So Hal has another option to kill Baku before leap second. That is why Hal is trying to affect Baku's mentality and kill him with a failed check. Next thing Hal does is test his echolocation. Hal produces a high-frequency sound close to the dropped handkerchief to test if he can visualize the handkerchief. But the sound of the speaking clock is too loud and it is hindering Hal's echolocation. So in order to use echolocation in this game, Hal has to get rid of the loud sound of the speaking clock. He uses a strategic manipulation tactic to make the referees lower the volume of the speaking clock. He slowly whispers something in Baku's ears, which makes the referees lower the volume as they want to hear every single word that is being said by Baku or Souichi. It's an effective manipulation tactic that Hal used to lower down the volume of the speaking clock and use echolocation. Hal brilliantly manipulates people who are not even in front of him. Now on to the round. As I said, Baku must not die in this round, and hence, he uses the safe strategy as it's the best thing for Baku to do, as his container is also emptied. Baku also believes Souichi won't drop the handkerchief for some time, so it is safe for him to take the safe strategy, and that's what Hal wanted to do at first. Hal wanted to take care of Baku before leap second if possible, but Baku, knowing this, checks at the 60th second. While Hal, realizing Baku is not going to turn around, drops the handkerchief at the 35th second, as after 30 seconds, the chances of C checking would become lower, and Hal dropped at 35 seconds exactly to see if Baku checks after 30 seconds or not, but Baku didn't, and hence being the reason for Hal's dropping. Make sure Hal also realizes that it might be actually not possible to kill Baku like that, so Hal changes his motives from this round. Now as soon as this round ends, Baku does not get up from his chair as to see if he can change the pace of the successful checks, but he figures out that 2 minutes is the fixed amount of interval in each round with safe checks. Now begins the second half of the second round that starts at 8:21 AM. However, we see that Souichi has failed his check, and has revived from his first near death, and we can see glimpses of his memory lose already. Hal now knows that he might actually end up losing his memory before leap second. When Hal wakes up, he wasn't sure how he lost to Baku, but then Yaku explains that he failed his check at the 5th second, although Hal wasn't sure why he checked at 5 seconds, but later on, he remembers that he challenged Baku full on but he lost. But let me tell you this, challenging Baku was not something Hal wanted to do at all. Not just that, it doesn't even make any sense for Hal to do a check like that. If he wanted to challenge Baku, he could have done a check before 5 seconds, but why 5 seconds? It seems like Hal intended to hide the fact that he wanted to fail his check intentionally. Now the main reason for Hal to fail his check here was to actually give Baku a chance to open the leap second route. As you know, for Baku it's almost not possible to make Hal die and open the leap second route. Baku must die himself, in order to enter the leap second route, and that's exactly what Hal did, by dying in the second round. He gave Baku an opportunity in which he can die at any point of time, and enter the leap second route easily. Hal preceded the game by 5 minutes, and he made the next round to start at 8:26 AM. Now 8:26 AM would be Baku's turn to play C, and if Baku dies at 8:26 AM, Baku would easily enter the leap second route as you can see, and that's exactly why Baku was amazed by Hal's check at 5 seconds. As Yaku saw Baku's expressions to be amazed by Hal's check, it was due to the fact that Baku did not even need to do anything, and Hal casually gave him the opportunity to enter the leap second route. And that is also why Baku was suspicious that Hal saw through leap second. Anyone would think like that. Now you might be thinking that if Hal said that he checked to challenge Baku, that must be true, but no, that's not right. Hal's actions are being controlled by his subconscious knowledge of leap second and Baku's plan, and Hal didn't really remember why he did that. Instead, Hal created an answer to that himself, as this was mentioned later in the game to be known as the cognitive load. We try to create the simplest answer to problems in order to lower the load of it on our mind, and just like that, Hal believed that he checked to challenge Baku. But thinking clearly to it, that's not something Hal would do, as it does not make any sense for Hal to do. Also, there was absolutely no benefit for Hal to check that early, because Hal clearly had 4 uses of the safe strategy. To check at 5 seconds while having 4 safe strategies does not even make any sense, and as Hal's plan was to fall for leap second and survive by creating a small deviation that he mentioned in this panel, it makes more sense for him to intentionally die in this round in order to let Baku enter the leap second route. And the answer to why Baku didn't drop the handkerchief, it was that in this round Baku can actually make Hal die, and Baku would die in the next round to enter the leap second route. Baku was aware of it, but Baku didn't expect Hal to check at 5 seconds, that's why he was amazed. I hope your doubts on this round are clear. With this, the third round's first half begins at 8:26 AM, which is Baku's turn to play C. Now as Hal died in second round, Baku has the perfect opportunity now. He can safely die in this round, and enter the leap second route, but Baku is really suspicious of Hal's actions in the second round. Baku also knows that he has no safe strategies left, as if he chooses to take the safe strategy, Baku might increase his own accumulation and fail to enter the leap second route due to him dying for more than 1 minute and 25 seconds. A longer time than this might actually have chances of Baku dying due to a small gap in Baku's first and second near death. So, Baku must definitely not take the safe strategy. However, Baku takes the gamble due to Hal's suspicious actions. He wanted to check what Hal does in this round, as if to know the answer to Hal knowing the leap second or not, but Baku intuitively believes that Hal has not seen through leap second. And in order to make sure Hal does not see through it, Baku foresees the 3 near-death strategy. That is, if Baku dies with 25 seconds of accumulation in his container, he would die for 1 minute and 25 seconds, adding to his previous near-death. Baku's current TTD would be only 2 minutes and 25 seconds, now this has a high chance of Baku surviving. While Baku would be able to die for 3 minutes or less once again, as Baku would still stay within 4 minutes of TTD, which is safer to survive. This was Baku's 3 near-death strategy, and this strategy also implies that 4th round is the best time for Baku to die, as dying in 3 rounds would also be riskier due to how close his first and second near-death would be. Baku chooses to take the safe strategy anyway, and finds out that Souichi dropped the handkerchief at the 56th second. With this, Baku accumulated merely 4 seconds. Now onto Hal's POV. Hal consciously wanted to drop the handkerchief earlier, but he wasn't able to. As you can see, Hal is yelling at himself to drop the handkerchief, but he just could not. This is another proof that Souichi's subconsciousness is controlling his actions, as he subconsciously knows about leap second. Him not dropping the handkerchief refers to letting Baku die to enter the leap second route, and considering Hal does not know leap second, him wanting to drop the handkerchief earlier is also his best decision. As Baku has 3 uses of the safe strategy, anyone would think that Baku would use the safe strategy, but not someone who knows about Baku's leap second plan, which suggests that Baku is going to check early in this round. But Baku exceeded Hal's subconscious expectations, as Hal thought Baku would check early to enter the leap second route, but Baku used the safe strategy even though he wasn't supposed to, due to Baku's suspicions on Hal. With this, Baku countered Hal intuitively, however this made Hal change his motives. Now let's move to the 3rd round's second half, that is going to start at 8:28 AM, which is Baku's turn to play D. As Baku didn't die, he is not in the leap second route. Now in this round, Baku drops the handkerchief at the 24th second, and Hal takes the safe strategy, hence, accumulating 36 seconds of the near-death drug. It's obvious Hal can't die in this round, so he takes the safe strategy. And Baku, who doesn't want Souichi to figure out leap second, dropped the handkerchief at 24 seconds, because it's as if Baku is saying he didn't drop the handkerchief for 24 seconds because he was betting on Hal to turn around and fail his check, which would mean that Baku is not using the leap second, as that would mean Baku would not let Hal die because it would collapse the leap second route. So basically, Baku dropping the handkerchief at 24 seconds even while being sure that Hal would use the safe strategy is to show that he wants Hal to die right now, which just collapsed the leap second route. This move was just to not let Souichi be suspicious of Baku using the leap second. The 4th round's first half starts at 8:30 AM. It's Baku's turn to play C. Now Baku clearly is aiming to fail his check, so that he can enter the leap second route, as if he dies here the next half of this round will start at 8:35 AM, and as you can see, Baku is in the leap second route, so Baku's aim here is clearly to fail his check, but also not to let Souichi doubt that Baku wanted to fail his check intentionally. That is why Baku checked at 10 seconds instead of checking instantly. But Hal counters this and drops at 7 seconds, which means Hal prevented Baku from failing his check. But now you would think, if Hal wanted Baku to enter the leap second route, then why is he stopping Baku from entering it? That is basically because even Hal stops Baku from failing his check, he can still fail his check in later rounds and enter the leap second route. But that's not the only reason. Hal is also not trying to let Baku know that he has figured out the leap second. And this early drop was to strengthen his bluff that is going to happen in the later rounds. I will explain it when that round happens. With this successful check, Baku accumulated a small 3 seconds of the near-death drug. And as the round ends, every referee starts to doubt Hal's dropping, without realizing his motives, as if Baku clearly saw through Hal. But instead, Baku wasn't able to enter the leap second route due to this. But with this drop of Souichi, Baku uses this moment as an opportunity to use the 3 near-death strategy as a decoy, and get Souichi figure it out, so that Souichi doesn't figure out leap second. Meanwhile, what Souichi does here is crazy. He reads the minds of every referee. Like after this round ended, referee Madara explains how Hal's dropping was a big mistake theoretically, and Hal replies to it exactly, as if he can clearly read their minds, and he reads Fukuru, who was thinking that Baku might win against Souichi if that's how Souichi plays, and then he thinks that Souichi might win if he can turn back time. And Hal exactly reads Fukuru's mind, and he abducts that there is a reason for Baku's checking early, and if he can figure that out he would win. Now Hal already knows why Baku turned around earlier, which is to enter the leap second route, but Hal does not know this consciously, which is why Hal says this. And now the second half of the 4th round begins at exactly 8:32 AM, which is Baku's turn to play D, and Baku is not in the leap second route right now. Baku, who still has the chance to enter the leap second route, Baku drops the handkerchief instantly in order to accumulate Hal's drug to kill him with the leap second, as Hal's TTD right now is only 1 minute and 24 seconds. He has to get it to at least 5 minutes, or Souichi's chances to survive would exist. Meanwhile, Hal checks at the 34th second. Now this was a risky check. Souichi chose to check in the middle of the round, despite the fact that if he fails to check he might even die. Souichi knows Baku couldn't let Hal die, which would collapse the leap second route. Souichi checking at 34 seconds is to create a small deviation to survive after the leap second, as creating a large deviation is like telling Baku that Souichi has figured out leap second. and checking early without hesitating as if he knows Baku's entire plan, which might cause Baku to change his plans as well. So that's why Souichi is trying to accumulate his drug more for Baku, and Baku, who knows Souichi can't risk his life in this round, immediately drops the handkerchief. And then comes the fifth round's first half, which started at 8:34 AM. Baku believes that Souichi hasn't seen through leap second due to Souichi's declaration in the fourth round, and as I said, by forgetting about leap second consciously, Souichi himself believes what he says, which would definitely deceive Baku. This is Baku's turn to play C, and Baku instantly checks in this round for many reasons. The very first and the main reason is to enter the leap second route, and second is to show that Baku is failing his check intentionally, for letting Hal know about the 3 near-death strategy instead of the leap second strategy. As for Baku, this is the best time to die, as he would not lose all his options, and still have a foothold to stand on. While with this death Baku is clearly trying to enter the leap second route, but that would make Souichi believe the 3 near-death strategy, as Baku is completely sure that Souichi hasn't seen through his plan. But Souichi blocks his instant check, and prevents Baku from dying once again, although Hal wants Baku to enter the leap second route, but there's another strong reason why Hal is preventing it. Now Hal reveals Baku's 3 near-death strategy, which is not the real strategy, but Hal, who consciously doesn't know about leap second, would clearly believe this strategy, as Hal has forgotten even the premises to induce leap second. So he would figure out what Baku is doing instead of leap second, and Baku, who believes that Souichi hasn't seen through leap second, also believes that Souichi would expose his 3 near-death strategy, and it was to keep Hal from figuring it out. Souichi explains the 3 near-death strategy, which is that Baku can die 3 times, as even after his death in this round, Baku would still have 2 minutes and 28 seconds to die for, which is below the limit of guaranteed death. Now Baku counters Hal's thinking by saying Hal prevented Baku's death just to one-up him, but it did no damage to Baku at all. Instead, he achieved a perfect check, which is true, but Souichi once again points out a flaw in Baku's thinking and explains him the condition of Yaku, who is on the verge of death. Now look how Souichi instantly brought up a fabricated lie, as to say he already knows Yaku's conditions and that's why he blocked Baku's death, but instead he has another motives behind blocking it, and that's to strengthen his bluff. Now Hal straightforwardly bluffs that as Yaku's CPR is getting weaker and weaker, he will be the first one to die, as it would be much safer for him to die first than dying later, which would weaken Yaku once again. And as I said before, the reason for Souichi to block Baku's checks despite wanting him to enter the leap second route was merely to make Baku believe his bluff completely. I will explain how Baku has no way to avoid this bluff. Not just that, he brilliantly taunts Yaku in order to motivate him to not get weaker, as he understands Yaku's dedications, and Yaku indeed gets an adrenaline rush and gets motivated for some time. The next half of the 5th round starts at 8:36 AM. This is Baku's turn to play D. Baku is not in the leap second route yet. Now Baku completely believed Hal's bluff, and Hal's manipulation to get Baku drop the handkerchief early was successful. Baku dropped the handkerchief instantly. But guess what? Hal didn't check early. Now there are tons of reasons for that, but before that let's see why Baku fall for it so easily. Firstly, that is because he is sure Hal doesn't know leap second. Secondly, Hal's fabrication and bluff got so strong after Hal prevented Baku's death in previous rounds, that Baku has no way to avoid it, as there is no way he can let Hal die, because if Hal dies, Baku won't be able to enter the leap second route, while Baku's chances to fail his check and survive would also diminish, and Hal has very less TTD, so Baku won't be able to defeat Hal without leap second at this point, which is why Baku would have not let Hal die, even if he hadn't believed Hal's bluff. There was no way Baku can take the risk and let Hal die, although as we can see, Baku fall for Hal's bluff. Now let's see the reason of Hal not checking early. The main reason is to create a really small deviation, precisely saying, merely 2 seconds of deviation. Keep this in mind, at this point, as slowly Hal made Baku believe that he hasn't seen through leap second, and slowly strengthening his bluff in the 5th round, Hal has successfully made Baku drop the handkerchief earlier and always target the accumulation. Now Hal can easily predict and calculate his TTD till 8:59 AM and even after 8:59 AM. Which is when Baku would use the leap second. Hal knows that Baku would always drop the handkerchief instantly now, because as Hal knows that he is going to let Baku die in the next round, Baku won't let Hal die for some time, which would ruin the leap second route, and Baku also has to accumulate Hal's container to effectively use leap second, and as Hal knows all of this, Hal can simply control his TTD completely. Hal can choose when to check, and Hal can now precisely and accurately create the amount of deviation he wants, and as Hal bluffed, Baku indeed drops instantly, while Hal checks at 15 seconds, but you would be confused, as Hal knows Baku has fallen for his bluff. He must have checked earlier, but he didn't do that because checking earlier is like clearly saying that Hal knows Baku would drop early, and that would also make Baku lose hope to accumulate Hal's drug and use the leap second, which might also give Baku other options, as Baku figuring out Hal knowing leap second would mean Baku can easily see through Hal's motives, as Hal has to prevent his accumulations, so he would check earlier, and Baku can counter that by not dropping, and that would completely ruin Souichi's plan, which is why Souichi is trying to create a small deviation that just stays unnoticed by Baku, and make Baku believe that he can still accumulate Hal's drug in some way till the leap second happens, and so Hal might survive after the leap second route. Another reason for Hal to check at 15 seconds is to show that he wants to one-up Baku, or show that Hal is not sure if Baku falls for it or not. Although due to Baku's unpredictability, Hal uses echolocation before checking anyway so that he can be 100% sure Baku fall for it. Next is the 6th round's first half, which started at 8:38 AM. Baku checks instantly, while Hal didn't drop the handkerchief. Now Hal achieved his second goal, that was to let Baku enter the leap second route, and as you remember, Souichi motivated Yaku by saying those words temporarily, and as he said that he is going to die, so Yaku must revive Hal and do his job. But as Hal didn't do that, and Hal did completely the opposite of what he said, it actually made Yaku even weaker and feel burdened. Now Hal has not only made a possibility of Baku entering the leap second route, but also by weakening Yaku, he had increased the chances of Baku dying, which means Hal won't have to go through the trouble of falling for leap second. And as you saw, Baku barely got revived, but sadly for Hal, Baku entered the leap second route, although Hal still isn't that worried as Baku entered the leap second route and his plan is still ongoing. Now the second half of the 6th round starts at 8:43 AM, which is Baku's turn to play D, and Baku is finally in the leap second route. As you can see, now in this round, Hal once again knows that Baku is not going to let Hal die, hence drop the handkerchief instantly, and once again, Hal can decide when to check, in order to create the deviation. Although, Hal uses echolocation and successfully checks at the 8th second, this makes Baku shocked as realizes it's very hard to accumulate Hal's drug, but it's still not enough for Baku to lose hope on the leap second plan, as there are still ways for Baku to increase Hal's TTD instead of his accumulation. I will get to that later. Let's start the first half of the 7th round, which started at 8:45 AM, which is Souichi's turn to play D. Now let's see Baku's brilliant strategy. Baku realizes that it's possible for him to increase Hal's TTD instead of increasing his drug, basically by making Hal die for more than 2 minutes. As of right now, Hal's TTD is merely 1 minute and 24 seconds, and his current accumulation in his container is 1 minute and 33 seconds. Baku knows if he can make Hal die at a point of time that would also not make the leap second route inactive, he can actually make Hal die for more than 2 minutes, and with that, Hal's TTD would directly reach more than 3 minutes. Hal's current accumulation in both container and his body is 3 minutes and 57 seconds, which is very close to 5 minutes. If Baku can accumulate 1 more minute and some more seconds, he can use the leap second effectively, and that's Baku's plan. But Baku has to make Hal die in order to increase his accumulations, and in order to do that, Baku chooses to increase his own accumulation in his container, by taking up 60 seconds accumulations. Now why would this make Hal die? There's a reason behind Baku's consideration, as Baku's deep understanding to Hal's personality, he definitely would not want to win against Baku with a huge gap, so if Baku now intentionally uses the safe strategy regardless of the accumulation, he can actually choose to intentionally be on the edge of the cliff, as this would make Hal die and take even more advantage against Baku, but also actually getting closer to Baku in TTD, as Baku believes Hal wants to one-up him, Hal would definitely die. So in this half, Baku takes the safe strategy, in order to manipulate Hal's thoughts, and also to not ruin the leap second route, while Hal dropped the handkerchief as soon as the round started. With this, Baku accumulated the largest 60 seconds of near-death drug. Now the second half of the 7th round starts at 8:47 AM, which is Baku's turn to play D. Baku is still in the leap second route. Now, as you remember, Souichi manipulated the referees in the second round. Baku feels the sound of the speaking clock to be reduced. He notices this as some words he said in a low sound. The sound of the speaking clock got lower. But Baku realizes that this is not the first time it got lower. With this, Baku remembers Hal whispered something in his ears. Baku remembers about echolocation, as he saw Souichi's mother use it in a recording. As Baku secretly figured out Hal's identity and about his memory loss, he realizes that Souichi might have also learned echolocation, and with these premises, Baku induced that Souichi manipulated the referees to lower down the volume of the speaking clock that was hindering his echolocation. Baku figures out Hal's echolocation and Hal listens. Baku sitting on the ground with his abnormal hearing skills. Hal figures out that Baku might have figured out his echolocation, Hal figured it out from his first near-death drug, where he saw the bloodstain on Baku's dress. The bloodstain was due to Iba killing the rat. Hal figures out that Baku had been to the Arizuka building where he might have learnt about his mother's echolocation, and hence he was able to figure out Baku seeing through his echolocation just by Baku sitting on the ground. Not only that, but Hal also sees through Baku flattening the handkerchief in order to prevent Hal from visualizing the handkerchief. With this, Hal checks instantly and achieves a 1-second accumulation, as Hal also was sure that Baku is targeting the accumulation, although Hal seemed to be hesitating due to him not knowing about Baku's motives, but consciously seeing through Baku seeing through echolocation. But the reason for Hal's dedication was due to his subconscious knowledge of Leap Second and Baku's motives. The first half of the 8th round starts at 8:49 AM. This is Hal's turn to play D, and as Hal knows that Baku can't possibly fail his check anymore, he drops the handkerchief early, but instead of dropping it instantly, he drops it at 5 seconds. If Baku tries to check early, he would fail his check, and as I explained earlier, Baku, who wants to corner Hal, chooses the safe strategy, as Baku also knows Hal can't bait Baku to fail his check, as it's not logical at all. With this check, Baku accumulated 55 seconds, and the total amount of accumulation in his cylinder is 1 minute and 55 seconds. And with this, Baku is completely cornered, and it would manipulate Hal to fail his check to take the advantage. As Hal knows Baku's conditions, Hal would definitely want to take the complete advantage, but also be close to Baku's condition, and for Baku, that's what Hal is going to do. On to the 8th round's second half, which started at 8:51 AM, and as Baku cornered Hal took the instant check intentionally to take the advantage. Hal does not want to avoid any risks. But this is too far from being Hal's actual motives in this round. The actual reason is, for Souichi, who is subconsciously aware of Leap Second, instantly checking in this round is the best decision Hal can take, instead of any other decision C can possibly take. Like taking the safe strategy or doing a safe check in the middle, both of these decisions are completely disadvantageous for Hal to take. There are 2 reasons for Hal's instant check in this round. As Hal knows that he has 3 uses of the safe strategy, it's logical for Baku to target his accumulations, also due to the fact that it would be more effective to kill Hal using Leap Second with a higher TTD than only 1 minute. So for Baku to drop instantly is a high chance of a possibility as well, and if Baku does this, Hal would achieve another perfect check. And the second reason is, even if Baku doesn't drop the handkerchief, Hal has already calculated this possibility a long time ago, and with his death in this round, Hal would successfully seize those 2 seconds and survive Leap Second. And as expected by Hal, he died in this round, and died for 2 minutes and 34 seconds, and as for Yaku's conditions, Yaku can still take Souichi's CPR, he hasn't weakened completely, and Souichi knows, after Baku's second near-death, Yaku has regained his strength after reviving Baku even when there was near no chance. With this, Yaku was motivated enough to take more CPR, and if Yaku successfully revives Hal once again without any problem, then he can once again revive Hal after the Leap Second due to the positive impact on Yaku's emotionally. And with this near death, Hal's TTD now is 3 minutes and 58 seconds, and he has lost all of his memory as expected by him, because before taking the drug, Souichi asked Yaku to remind him of the rules, if Hal seems to be confused, which would mean he lost his memory, and during his near death, Hal figures out Leap Second consciously, right before the time ran out. Hal solved the puzzle, and saw through the answer that is Leap Second, but as he revived, he once again lost his memory of Leap Second. And unexpectedly, Hal even lost his perfect mode, which was said to be the crisis that was awaiting ahead of Souichi. With this, Souichi lost his biological clock, and Hal can't use echolocation as Baku can simply prevent it. Next is the first half of the 9th round, which started at 8:57 AM. Now the interval in this near death was 6 minutes. The reason for this is simple. Hal died for 2 minutes and 34 seconds. This is a long amount of duration for him to die, and just because of that, the extra minute interval was added. This is Hal's turn to play D, and as explained, there is no way for Baku to do an early check, and Hal, who just lost his memory about everything that happened till now, he doesn't know how much TTD Baku has, but Hal believes that Baku is not going to turn around until 60 seconds, and without any reason, Hal believes that Baku is using the safe strategy, as Hal stopped Yaku from explaining any further. He obviously doesn't know Baku's drug accumulation and also how many times Baku died for. That is why Hal had no reason to believe Baku is going to use the safe strategy, yet he dropped it instantly, because Hal's subconsciousness knows that if Baku dies here, he won't be able to play as D at 8:59 AM to use the Leap Second, and that was the only reason for his certainty that he wasn't aware of. With this, Baku achieved another 60 seconds accumulation. With this, Baku exceeded 5 minutes of total accumulation, as Baku died for 2 minutes and 33 seconds, while he has 2 minutes and 55 seconds of the near-death drug in his container. which means his total accumulation of the drug would be 5 minutes and 28 seconds. And now comes the leap second round, the 9th round second half, which happens at 8:59 am. This is Baku's turn to play D. Baku drops the handkerchief at the 61th second. Meanwhile Souichi, who is unaware of leap second, turns around at 60th second, when the dong sound rang for the first time, and it rang once again at the 61st second. With this, Hal fails his check as planned, and dies for 1 minute. Here comes the hallucination round, the 10th round's first half, which is going to happen at 9:04 am. Baku and Yaku hallucinates that Hal has survived, and now they notice that there is a 2-second deviation due to which Hal survived. As Hal's TTD after the 9th round was 4 minutes and 58 seconds, and Baku wanted to accumulate at least 5 minutes to successfully kill Souichi, this creates a 2-second deviation. Hal wakes up and says that it was due to the fact that he seized those 2 seconds and survived. Hal mentions what happened in the 6th round and the 7th round. Due to Hal's 8-second check in 6th round and 1-second check in the 7th round, Hal only accumulated 9 seconds at that time, which created a gap of merely 2 seconds to complete the 60 seconds, after being added to his previous accumulations, and if Hal didn't limit his accumulations to those 9 seconds, those 2 seconds would have never existed. Now according to this statement, Hal knew about Baku's actions completely right from the 5th round, and it was due to his checks in those rounds that he is able to survive right now. Now most of the viewers will say, all my analysis is based on this statement by Hal in Baku's hallucinations, which means what Hal said is not true because it never happened. But as this scan says here, whatever happened in this hallucination was a reality for the 3 of them. This includes Hal as well, which clearly means that whatever Hal said in the hallucinations was indeed a reality, and not just this statement. But everything Hal did in the previous round confirms that Hal's plan indeed was to create the 2-second deviations and survive, and he knew about leap second since the very beginning. The proof is Hal stopping the stopwatch at the exact 9th second, which indicates 9 am, which is exactly when leap second is going to happen. And all of these clues proves the fact that Hal indeed knew about leap second, and he planned to fall for leap second from the beginning. Now the only question remain is, why Hal couldn't survive? The answer is simple, due to Yaku's CPR, and not because of the amount of time he died for. The proof of that is Hal survived in the hospital even after taking 4 minutes and 58 seconds of the near-death drug. This indeed proves that Souichi's body was capable of surviving even after taking 4 minutes and 58 seconds of the near-death drug. But the only reason he died was because of the weak CPR given by Yaku. Now I will explain why Hal's strategy to create 2 seconds deviation to survive wasn't risky at all, as many people would now think that it would have been better if Hal created a higher deviation instead of merely 2 seconds. But there is a reason for it. Creating a higher deviation is like telling Baku that he has seen through leap second, as the higher deviation and low accumulation would give Baku clues that Hal can predict Baku's actions, which is only possible when Hal knows about leap second. And that is exactly what Hal wanted to avoid. This is why he didn't create a higher deviation, and Hal was 100% sure that 2 seconds of deviation would be enough for him to survive. I will prove how exactly. Hal, being perfect, already predicted that his body can survive with the 2 seconds deviation, because Hal knows what exactly his body is capable of, and Hal is guaranteed that his body is capable of taking 4 minutes and 58 seconds of the near-death drug and still survive, which is why he never lost hope of this plan. And the reason he understands the potential of his body is simply because he can manipulate every part of it. And for Hal to be able to manipulate every part of his body, he must understand how it functions firstly, and know what it's capable of. Without proper understanding of his own body, it's impossible for him to manipulate his body at his own will, which means in Souichi's perspective, the 2-second deviation strategy wasn't a risky strategy, as he is completely aware of the potential of his body with a 100% certainty, which is obviously due to his perfect mode, and unluckily Hal couldn't survive during the game, but he did survive after the game, so Hal's strategy was successful anyway. And just in case you still have any doubt, even the slightest doubt, you can ask me anything at all, and I will explain everything personally, as I myself know that there are some things in this video which would obviously leave some doubts, and it's impossible for me to cover every possibility in a single video, as it would just make the video more complicated. Now to summarize Baku and Hal's plans from the start. Baku wanted to kill Hal using the leap second. Baku's goal in the game was to accumulate at least 5 minutes to make sure Hal dies, but Hal managed to seize 2 seconds against Baku, and Baku's goal to accumulate 5 minutes failed. Even though Baku won, Hal was able to survive. Right from the beginning, Hal had near no chance to win against Baku only due to his memory loss, yet Hal was able to adapt to his memory loss and create a really complex and logical strategy. This strategy to seize 2 seconds considers every single possibility and concludes that this was the best decision for Hal. Now if any of you think Baku is scaled lower, then you are wrong. Baku scales exactly as he is used to, and even after this analysis, Baku and Hal stands on par with each other, and it's subjective for who among them is smarter, as Baku had no way of knowing that Hal was aware of leap second, due to Hal's supernatural abilities and his perfection. Baku did everything logically with the peak of intelligence, and every action Baku took were the most cunning thing possible. I hope you understood everything. Please share this with your friends who want to understand Surpassing the Leader arc and the complex mind games. Thanks for watching this video.